All
We'll
right,
get
what are we
started here,
talking
man.
about today?
Yeah, man. We're here to
Sure.
talk about the mental side of sports. I think obviously it gets a little bit less attention than the physical side, and probably not as flashy, not as sexy. But I think you can definitely attest to this. It's equally, if not more important than the physical side.
If anything, it's probably the most important thing. I've had so many struggles and battles internally with myself, and just all the failures that I've had to go through in life have built me as the person I am today. And then after my athletic career is over, I know I'm going to be pretty much set. I don't know where it's going to take me, but just the human being that I've built, just because of the mental struggles that I've had to overcome. Uh, I'm excited for life after baseball. But like you said, when we were chatting before, man, it's like I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I can do it. I love
Yeah.
doing it. And, I've always been one of those people to just like keep learning. And I always try and surround myself with people that are willing to do the same as well. Like my training group is pretty awesome right now. I have Miguel Rojas, Derek Dietrich, and, Stanton rolls by here and there. But these are the guys that I want to surround myself, because they all have careers that I can only hope for.
Yeah.
And like, what was it and what is it that's made them the athletes that they are today? And these are things that I constantly ask questions. And if you were to see me and what I'm like, I look like a tail behind a dog. Like I don't let those guys go very far from me.
Right.
But it's what I love doing. I love learning new things and incorporating into my game and seeing what works for me.
For sure, man. I think even in just those couple sentences, there's a lot to unpack in terms of the mental game. But the one thing that sticks out that I most recently talked to a couple athletes about was surrounding yourself with the right people. I think the quote goes like, you're the average of the 5 closest people to you, or you're the average of your inner circle, so to say.
Absolutely.
Man, I mean, you can probably attest to that day in and day out, but just having those guys around you, not only from a baseball or in other cases, short track speed skating perspective, but just from a mental perspective and just life in general, when you're around guys that have made it and they have that drive that push
Absolutely.
them to where they are, I mean, it just rubs off on you naturally.
Preach. I mean, I learned this, and I was fortunate enough to learn this at the age of 19. I was training. I had a past life of short track speed skating. I was training in California, and I was probably one of the top junior skaters in the country, and in the world, if we're gonna go that route. But I had been invited to train with the U.S. national team. The only problem that I had was the coach that I was training with in California was I didn't want to leave that coach. I thought that we meshed so well. She was one of the wittiest person that I've ever been around, training wise. Probably one of the greater program writers that I've ever experienced as training aspect. And she was the one that said like it didn't matter who was really coaching. I had to be around the best guys in the country. I had to go skate with J.R. Selsky. I had to go skate with Apollo Ono. And it's so true. Just surrounding yourself with, those challenges. Because at the end of the day, it's, if you want to be the best, you got to train and play with the best.
For sure,
And,
man.
that's why, moving on to my baseball career, I never settled on just this was just I never jumped into this business just hoping to get to the big leagues. I got into this business willing to do whatever it took, because baseball was an absolute passion of mine, and I was going to surround myself with people that were going to have the optimistic mindset that I've always had.
Yeah. I know you're from the Miami area, but you mentioned being in California. Was that move out there specifically for speed skating?
100%. It was, I was right out of high school. I had dropped my baseball scholarship
Wow.
to just chase a dream. How about that?
Leap of faith.
And it was that's all it was. It was a leap of faith. I had no idea where it was going to take me. I just knew that there was this one coach that I needed to train with to even sniff potentially going to the Olympics. And my parents understood that. They were fully supportive of me moving out to California. I lived in her living room floor. My that coach that in California, I lived in her living room floor. I paid rent to her, and I trained, 6 or 8 hours a day. Every day I was very behind. Everyone was better than me, faster than me. They haven't gotten off the ice. I had just quit skating for about 3 years, so I'm coming back. And this was 2008, and then a short year later, I was already one of the top junior skaters in the country, and got an invitation to start training with the U.S. national team in Salt Lake City, Utah in 2009.
Wow. I think that move across the country from the east to the west coast, that's a big decision for a 17 or 18-year-old kid. I got to imagine, especially probably a lot of your buddies or friends that you went to high school with, they were maybe probably staying at home, going down a career path, maybe going to university. And for you to kind of follow that dream, I think, A, that's a big choice to make, but B, I think that speaks to the mentality that you need as an athlete for somebody to get to that step or to get to that place where they're successful in their sport.
Yeah. Being never being how do I put this? Almost a mama's boy. Never left the house. I traveled a lot, but my parents were always with me, so I never spent time alone. So that 18-year-old me had to grow up real fast. And yeah, it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was tough in my late teen, early 20 years, looking at, when social media started getting hot, looking at all my friends at parties and them having time of their lives, what it seemed like in the universities and stuff like that. And I'm absolutely killing myself and destroying my body trying to accomplish a dream that I had since I was 7 or 8 years old. It was tough at the time, but man, I look back now and I'm so thankful that I had that grit and dedication to sacrifice that time, because the experiences that I've had the opportunity of experiencing are once in a lifetime stuff, man.
I think that's also a perfect example of like the power of passion. Like, you were still passionate about that sport, short track speed skating, that it, like you said, it sucked looking at your friends partying. It sucked knowing the life that maybe you had left behind, but that passion, I think that trumps everything. I think that's one of the beautiful things I love about sports psychology. It's not just about sports, it's about life in general. And that's, I think, a take-home lesson for anybody, athlete or not, is if you're not loving exactly what you're doing, you're not probably putting in 110%. So you got to find that passion and everything else falls in place.
It's funny because you, in that whole sentence that you had just said my favorite quote of all time. That has carried me through the Olympics, that has carried me through baseball. Yeah. And that's passion trumps logic.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. One of the unique things of your story that kind of got me thinking about, when I think about athletes that I've talked to, younger athletes I've coached or consulted with, a lot of them, their whole identity is their sport. So when something kind of wrong goes wrong within their sport, they really struggle with that. But I'm interested in your case because growing up being kind of a dual sport athlete, I know bouncing back in between here and there, between baseball and short track speed skating, what did you feel like your identity was kind of growing up? Did you feel like you were more of a short track speed skater, more of that baseball player? Was this something that you struggled with, people putting you in a certain box?
Guilty. 100%.
Yeah.
And like you said before, like we as athletes fall into that trap really easily of the sport that we play becoming our identity, and that eventually affects us and how we treat others around us, where like, your girlfriend, your family, your parents, your friends, when that starts to affect your relationships around you, it's time to take a step back and really analyze the situation. I've always, and this is something that I've had to learn over the years, because I've fallen, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% guilty of this. I've fallen into that trap of letting the sport define who I am as a person. It took me a long time to realize that sport is just something that I do. It's not who I am. I just so happen to be good in spandex, skating fast in circles, and swinging a bat. I mean, not I wouldn't say all-star caliber here, but
Right.
but still, but I've been lucky in the sense of always being able to kind of pick up where I left off, and not being burned out by either sport. So, for example, in that 2008 to 2010 range years, I was training to go to Vancouver Olympics. I didn't make the team, but I was having a lot of knee issues. I was able to take a step back, take a break from skating, and I was like, you know what, let's go try baseball in college. So that's when I called my the local college coach in Salt Lake City, Utah, the community college, Salt Lake Community College, and kind of set up a tryout. I showed up within 20 minutes. He had offered me the starting job for the upcoming season, and that was just kind of set. I played that year. It took about a year and a half off of skating. I was still training. This is the craziest part. I was still training with the U.S. national team in the mornings for about 4 hours. I would go to class, then I would practice with the baseball team in the afternoon, and then I would finish my day off with night classes.
Wow, that's a packed day.
So very packed day, and to do that, I think it was 4 times a week that I was going to really full-time classes, and then I had to make up classes on Wednesdays, and then I had online classes to do as well, because I had to be a full-time student if I wanted to play baseball.
Yeah.
So
how the hell do you fit anything else in your life, like social relationships, like just friends?
I had none.
Yeah.
I always lacked a little bit of that social life. I've always thankfully had great teammates, great people around me, a great family. But I was always reminded by my parents that how young I still was. Right. At the time I was 20, 21 years old, that there's plenty of time to enjoy yourself. And trust me, I've been able to do that now, and I'm pushing 31 here. And I'm, already ready to just stop to not go out anymore, and, but it was a tough, it was challenging to be that young and to see people around me having the time of their lives, or what it seemed like having the time of their lives. That was probably one of the bigger challenges, to be so young and so committed to sports, really, because I was already, at the time, a high level short track skater and toying with potentially getting drafted. For sure.
I think that's an excellent example for the other athletes out there that maybe have a passion for 2 sports or maybe 3 sports, that you can take some time off and focus on another sport and come back and pick up where you left off, especially because, I mean, at some point or another, sports, the training for one sport intersects with training for another sport. But to kind of relate this to the mental side of the game, why I feel like it's such an issue for a lot of younger athletes out there is because when their identity is their sport and that's all they know, they become so obsessed with it because so much of their value is attached to it.
Right.
When they get so obsessed, I think it's just super difficult for them to take that time off. So I really love that example.
Yeah, no, thankfully, and I obviously had to learn this through experience, but the competitive spirit never dies.
Right.
In any sport, it's you're learning to be the best you can be, the best, to bring your best ability to that day or that competition or that game. You do all this, and it's, the grind. We call it the grind in baseball, but in reality, everyone has a freaking grind.
Yeah.
You have a grind. You started this podcast because, you knew you had something special within yourself, and you knew that if it wasn't you who did it, someone else was going to do it, and you were going to be pissed off about it. You're going to look
100%.
back and be like, right, I should have done that. Right. But it's all the competitive spirit, no matter what you do in life. And thankfully I've had both sports because things that I've learned in skating, I've been able to translate to baseball, and things I've learned in baseball, I was able to translate into skating. And, I've had to do that jump a few times in my life, but still the competitive spirit never dies. I've learned who I was as an athlete growing up through jumping through two sports. So, I do believe that at some times in life, I think we're going to find ourselves certain challenges where we may need to take a step back and take a break. Because there was definitely times in my life that I wanted, and this is jumping between two sports, and I still felt like I needed a break from something.
Yeah.
So, I just wouldn't ever, if there's one advice out there, it's just, if you're passionate about something, see it through. Because no matter what the end result is, and do it. Sorry, let me say, if you're passionate about something, see it through, but do it wholeheartedly. Because if there's something that you, at the end of when you're older and you're in your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, and you look back, if there's any regret in your life, you did something wrong.
100%, man. And I think too, doing it wholeheartedly, no matter the outcome, you should be happy that you at least went through it. Because if it's truly a passion of yours, just that process of navigating through it and trying to better yourself with whatever that passion is, athletics or not, whether you are a gold medalist in the Olympics or whether you never sniff an amateur race, I mean, if that's your passion and you're doing that every day, I think that's what you take to the grave, and that's what defines happiness.
Amen, brother. I mean, I'm going to be able to look back at my life and not regret any decision that I've made. Now, don't get me wrong. I worked my ass off. And I'm a true believer that with hard work comes opportunity. So, it's those slim opportunities, because at the end of the day, if you look back, it's just these slim opportunities that one needs to take advantage of. One needs to seize the opportunity and, do their thing. But I'm going to be able to look back, and I'm going to be so content with all my decision making, all my trial and error, just sticking with it. Because, man, you have no idea. I've broken a bunch of helmets. I've beat up a bunch of bats on the floor. I've dealt with my own demons in sport as well. But that's just how passionate I was about improving to be the best person and the best athlete I can be.
When you look back, are there one or two instances in your athletic career where you feel like it shaped you the most from a mental perspective, adversity or challenge you've had to overcome?
The biggest one was my knee surgeries. I had, so after the 2010 trials that were held in 2009 for the Vancouver Olympics that I completely tanked at Olympic trials, I finally went and got my knees ultrasound and checked up, and it ended up that I had multiple tearing in both patella tendons. So I started PRP treatments to try and take the non-surgical route, but it ended up that I was running out of time. That I needed to just, I needed to go in surgically and fix my knees, both.
What is PRP? Sorry.
It's like the blood injection where they draw out your blood, they spin it for a certain amount of time. The white blood cells and the red
Like
blood
plasma,
cells.
I guess.
Yeah, rich
Okay.
platelet rich plasma injection. There
Gotcha.
we go. Yeah. But you name what I've done. I've done PRP. I've done stem cell. I've done bone marrow, where I've had to go through my back and get to the inside of my back, my bone, and get the bone marrow and then inject it back in my knees. I've done fat from my butt into my knees. Man, I've gone through hell and back with my knees. And it was in 2012. This was like 2011 after I told my coach, hey, I want to go back to skating. And my college coach was like, yeah, just chase your dream. There's always going to be a spot here for you. So in 2012, I finally made the decision to get my surgery. And when the doctors couldn't tell me or be sure that I would ever be able to skate again, that was like kind of a life check for me. This is something that I've dedicated many, many years of my life to get to this point. I was 19 at the time, competing for one of 5 spots for the Olympic team. And I was the up and comer and I didn't make the team. And then now I'm getting told that I might not be able to hold the squat position nor go 40 miles an hour on the ice. And hold those G forces around. It was a long recovery. Sitting in my parents' living room, my mom had laid out a bed on the floor. I didn't move for 2 months from the living room floor. I had learned guitar. Never thought I'd learn guitar, but I made it a thing to learn guitar by YouTubing it. But it was a mentally challenging time in my life. And I don't think if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have been able to get to the Olympics, nonetheless get to the major leagues, because I made myself some promises during that time period. And now I can say that I can look back and not have any regrets. And it was because of that trialing time that I can say that now.
That's the thing that I really want a lot of people to understand about adversity is trust the people that have gone through it when they tell you that it's there for a reason. Like it sucks in the moment.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, you and who you are, not only as an athlete, but as a person, you probably wouldn't be who you are without going through something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was naive. I was an athletic kid, was a very late developmentally, like I was a late bloomer. But still, I was always able to pick up a basketball and shoot it and like nothing, swish it or throw a football with perfect spiral. Like I've always been able to have that coordination to pick up a sport. But I needed to go through that. Yeah. I promised God, at the time that, and now looking back, like I thank God for everything that I've had to go through, because man, I just developed like a completely different human being, and not just in sport, it's just in life in general.
Sure, man. And obviously the short track speed skating is not your main focus right now. It's baseball, and it's the Marlins. When did you know that you were mentally ready to drop one sport somewhat more permanently and focus more so on the baseball?
So Olympics come in cycles of 4 years.
Yeah.
So every 4 years is the Olympics, depending on the season, winter or summer. So winter is every 2 years, summer is every 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, like that. So I was always able, thankfully, my high school season or my high school senior year of high school ended just about a year, almost 2 years before the previous Olympics, or the 2010 Olympics that were coming up. That was when I first decided, like, okay, this was something that I did growing up completely, national champion growing up as a kid multiple times. I made it to a junior world championship in China at 15. Like, I want to try this. I need to do this. Like, I need to go and just try it, because if I don't make it, whatever. So I did. I went to the university that I was supposed to go to. I went to see the coach, and I talked to him about, my dream. And he goes, yeah, I understand completely. Go chase it. You can come back whenever you want. It so happened that coach then moved to different schools, so my scholarship completely scratched off. Right. So now I'm still 18 at the time. I'm training in California. I suck at skating because, I grew up at like 17 is when I like shot up. I'm not very tall, but you should have seen me in high school. It was embarrassing. So I shot up, and I had to like almost rewire my whole, what I thought I knew about skating. So I was sucking at skating. I had no scholarship, and baseball was not in the picture. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. So I did, trained like crazy, was constantly doing video. I mean, my training days did not end. Maybe physically it ended, but mentally it did not end. You could talk to that coach in California. It was training from 6 a.m. all the way up till 12 or 1 o'clock. You take a break. Sometimes you would have to do a imitation training. If when that day ended, then I was doing constant video work. I bought a camera, and I filmed I would put the camera at a certain angle on the ice on like a bucket to film corners, so that I can then go back, track it with her. Like, I was obsessive about doing whatever it took.
Right.
And man, it worked. I no joke, just skyrocketed in a year. And, to be invited to train in the U.S. national team in that era was pretty surreal. We had such great athletes training at that time, skating at that time. And that was another big move on my end. I got a little closer to home, wasn't too much closer in Salt Lake City, from California to Salt Lake City, but still, it's been quite a ride, man.
Yeah. When you think back to yourself, again, moving to California, that 17 or 18-year-old kid, to who you are today, and you think about all the aspects of the mental side of sports, performance anxiety, confidence, positive affirmations, reset routines, anything you could think of, where do you feel like you've kind of grown the most as an athlete, or the area of your game that you felt that at one point was a weakness is now a strength for you?
I struggled a lot with performance anxiety. But it was funny because my performance anxiety, I would usually wear a heart rate monitor, throughout my day, like training days. But, there were some days where I would wear a heart rate monitor because my coach was very big into heart rate monitor training. And she would want us to wear heart rate monitors during our competition days as well, so that she knows like kind of where our heart rate is and where we want to try and get it to before we actually get, on the ice to then race. Like, she was huge into that. And man, my heart rate would sometimes get higher before the race than after the race.
And I'm assuming it's pretty high after the race, after sprinting on the ice.
Yeah, you had a full, for us, it's a fast sport, but it's an endurance-based sport. So our heart rate spikes immediately, and then we do this for 9 or 13 and a half laps. And at the speeds we're doing it, it's just like holding a wall squat, and then while people keep putting weights on your legs. the pain just doesn't go away. So our heart rates spike like crazy. So performance anxiety was a huge thing. And in baseball too, like I've always had issues with dealing with failure. Like I was scared growing up. I was scared to fail to the point where I would almost back out of things. But it was funny that when the gun shot, it went away. It's unbelievable. It was the most unbelievable thing, because once the gun shot, I'm already in it. I have no choice. I have no choice but to just see it through. Like that's it. What am I gonna do? Just
one of those
skate off the ice?
unexplainable things. It's just I think that really just talks about performance anxiety, and it really is just you're psyching yourself out, because
that's exactly what it is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead. The what I was gonna say was the one thing that helped me the most was taking cold showers in the mornings, because it wasn't so much of a physical benefit. It was more of a mental victory.
Right.
Probably one of the hardest things that you ever have to do in Utah. In the middle of winter, when it's 30 degrees outside, is jump in a cold shower. And to be honest, it was something that, was brought to my attention, and it came from, old Marine days of making your bed first thing you wake up in the morning. I mean, it's your first accomplishment of the day. And it sucks. The worst feeling in the world, but I got so addicted to the feeling after.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps so much with my anxiety, performance anxiety, because, it taught me to, one, be friends with the cold water, but two, just do it.
Yeah.
Just get it over with, I mean, it's 30 seconds. It started off with like 10 seconds. And then it started building up to the point where I was in there for like 2 minutes, taking a comfortable, normal shower. But this was something that I had to learn how to do. And I knew that if I faced my anxiety early, I didn't have to deal with it later.
For sure, man. I think I love that, because the more that we challenge ourselves, the easier the next challenge is. If we hold off going through something tough, going through adversity, hold off those challenges, every time we hold something off, it just gets harder and harder to get past it. The more we push ourselves mentally and physically, I think we get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So then you're telling yourself, I've done so many things, I've overcome, even just today. What is this Olympic race?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like starting to sprinkle out here.
It's all good. That's the last question I had anyways, bro.
Oh, so. Was it? No, no. It wasn't. We're good. It was the wind. I was hearing the wind coming through, so it sounded like rain was coming.
Gotcha.
All right. No, go ahead. Finish off what you got to finish off. Redo it. Whatever you got to do. Sorry.
The last thing I was going to say when you were talking about performance anxiety, and I kind of mentioned it a bit there, but positive affirmations, I think, are huge for that. Telling yourself, specifically in this context, because when you think about it, when you look at practice versus the actual competition, the only difference is the fans, or maybe the points attached to it, right? What I've seen a lot of athletes be really get a lot of good results with, I guess, are those positive affirmations, telling themselves before the race, like, I've done this in practice 1,000 times. There's nothing different about this race. Just wanted to throw in that little nugget there before we wrapped up here. Just kind of preaching positive affirmations, because that's been something I've been.
No, it's so true. It's so true how, positive self. There's two ways you can take. If we want to talk about anxiety, there's two ways you can look at it. Either take it as an optimistic person, or optimistic mindset, or pessimistic mindset. Yeah. You choose. I mean, are you going to be able to live with yourself if you just kind of, veer away from the challenge? Or would you prefer taking the challenge head on, possibly failing, but understanding that the failure is not you as a person, but rather what happened around you that caused you to fail? I'm going to take the optimistic outlook on this, and I'm going to say, man, I would rather fail and fall flat on my ass, because one, it's a learning experience. And two, it's it's just gonna I'm gonna look back and be like, I'm good with this. Like, I'm fine.
For sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It happened.
I love that. I even kind of thinking back, maybe think about why I started this podcast. Like, I would rather interview 100 athletes and get one view for each episode than interview 0 athletes and get no views.
There we go. That's beautiful, man.
I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up here, Eddy. I appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing some of your insights and experience when it comes to the mental side of sports. Obviously, baseball season's coming up soon. Wish you and the Marlins nothing but success and of course, health and safety as hopefully this COVID thing gets wrapped up. And
hopefully, man. Hopefully, Adam. Hopefully. But Thanks for having me on, man. This is great. What you're doing is really awesome, and I know you're going to blow up one day. So just don't forget the little people, right?